Welcome back to JEB and Flow here on the Street Parking Podcast channel. Awesome to have you here. How was your week? Did you start to look at some of the stuff that we talked about in terms of taking a little moment, a little pause, a little break before you make a choice? We're talking a lot about how it applies to laziness, but could be anything. But I know that if I'm laying around on the couch, or if I have that temptation to do so, if I step back, I'm like, close my eyes, think about it. What should I really do right now? What would be the best thing to do right now? What would be the one thing I can do right now that's going to make me feel good? Good in the sense of maybe accomplishing something, good in the sense of maybe being present for somebody, spending time with somebody. What is the one thing I can do? And chances are, the answer to that, once you get into the habit of doing this, chances are the answer to that is not going to be, let's eat chips and watch Netflix for 3 hours. Who knows? Who knows? I like to avoid the words always and never, so there may be some instances in which that is the right decision, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. So, anyways, this week, what's going on? I got a smoker not too long ago. A smoker like a barbecue. And I'm loving it. And I smoked this pork shoulder over the weekend. And let me just say, first of all, it was really good. This pork shoulder was 4 pounds, and I looked it up, and everything that I was looking at said that, you know, in this particular smoker and at this particular temperature, pork shoulder should take 60 to maybe 90 minutes per pound. It was a 4-pound shoulder, pork shoulder, right? 4 pounds, so 4 to 6 hours. Okay, cool. 4 to 6 hours, good to go. 11 hours later, it was ready. I had these big plans, you know, that I was gonna pull the pork off of the grill or the smoker at like 5 and let it rest, prepare all of these sides, and it was going to be delicious. And at 8:30 at night, Caroline and I are sitting in our kitchen just eating tomato sandwiches because the pork was still not ready yet. And I was treating ourselves with some Hawaiian buns to go on these pulled pork sandwiches. But the pork wasn't ready. So 8:30 at night, we're just sitting in there waiting for it to be ready, eating tomato sandwiches. By the way, if you've never had a tomato sandwich, they're really, really good. I am partial to them because it's one of my fondest memories of my grandmother when I was a little kid and I'd go to visit her down in Georgia over the summers. I remember she let me stay up late and she'd sit me up at her little bar counter in the kitchen and she would make me tomato sandwiches. And it's literally just, she would do it with white bread, Wonder Bread, Miracle Whip, sliced tomatoes, salt, pepper. That's it. That's your tomato sandwich. I'm telling you, if you've not had one of these, they are a real treat. They're so good. They're so delicious. And throw that into a nice fond memory of my grandmother. Oh, that's just the best. So it wasn't like this pitiful, depressing sight of Carolina and I eating tomato sandwiches in the dark, but it would have been nice for the pork shoulder to be ready. I was watching this documentary, was it a documentary? Interview? Something about Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk, if you are my age, if you're in my generation, Tony Hawk is the Michael Jordan of skateboarding. Tony Hawk is a legend. Everybody that I knew when I was like 10 to 13 years old, maybe, either had or wanted a Tony Hawk skateboard or a Powell Peralta skateboard. Powell Peralta was the skate company. And Tony Hawk was like the skater for Powell Peralta. Tony Hawk was able to, he went pro when he was a young teenager. He was able to buy a house while he was in high school. So he was the kid at the party house. And he graduated high school and basically went right to the set of this movie called Gleaming the Cube, which was also one of my favorite movies of all time. It's so good. Christian Slater, he's like this punk skater, but it's also kind of a thriller mystery type movie. Gleaming the Cube. Check it out. It's really good. Anyways, Tony Hawk had it made, and then all of a sudden, that just kind of stalled out. And he said from 1992 to 1995, he basically had nothing. He was getting like $100 to do skateboarding demos in front of amusement parks or something. Everything dried up. There's a lot of reasons for that. But it wasn't until like the mid-90s that like the X Games got popular and vert skateboarding got popular again because it became pretty uncool there for a little bit, and that's the type of skating he does. And then, of course, in the late 90s, again, if you're in my generation, you know about Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Arguably one of the best games ever created on PlayStation. Everybody had Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And the soundtrack was awesome. I still listen to that soundtrack sometimes. What am I talking about? What does a pork shoulder and Tony Hawk have in common? Well, I was looking up what's going on with my pork shoulder. Why is this taking so long? There's this thing, and any of you guys that know how to barbecue and smoke things, you already know what I'm talking about, but there's this thing called the stall. And when you are low and slow cooking meats, and I guess whatever else you want to cook in that style, there's this thing called the stall. So basically, the internal temperature of the meat can get up to 145 degrees pretty quickly. And then all of a sudden, it just takes hours for it to get from 145 to 165. And once it gets over that hump, it picks back up and it can get to whatever your goal temperature, 195, 200 degrees. It can get back up to that much, much faster, but there's this stall. And the stall is different with different types of meat, different cuts of meat, depends on how much fat is in the meat, how dense some of the tissue is in there, because we're talking about these meats that are like, you have to cook them really slow and low so that they get tender, and that's what makes them delicious. So that's why my 11-hour pork shoulder that only weighed 4 pounds was so good. But there's this stall. And you think, what's going on? Do I need to put more charcoal? Is the fire going out? Do I need to open up some vents? Like, what do I got to do? And that's why a lot of barbecue folks will wrap their meats at some point in the middle of it to try and push through that stall period. But there's this stall that happens. It seems like nothing is going the way you want it to. It doesn't seem like anything's going in the direction that you want it to. It seems like it's just totally stagnant. And in hearing Tony Hawk tell his story, I felt like everything was going well. He was a pro skater. He was well known. He was sponsored. He was on the best skate team that there was with the best company that was blowing up. And then nothing. And then all of a sudden it just stalled. And I don't know, to be in my early 20s, like 20, and hit that kind of a wall, it would be really hard to have the faith that at some point, if I just keep going, things are going to pick back up. That stall is enough to knock most people out of the game. And I know that we all have experienced that stall. We may not have even known it. Maybe we gave up. Maybe we switched gears. Maybe we changed directions before we actually got through that stall period. Maybe that was the right thing to do. Who knows? The Zen Master says, we'll see. But I think everything has a stall period. Any worthwhile pursuit has a stall period. If you think about weightlifting, like if you're going for hypertrophy, right? Bodybuilding, if you're trying to increase muscle size, you plateau. Unless you vary up your training regimen, there's ways to kind of work around it. It's the equivalent of wrapping your meat in foil. There's things you can do, but it's really hard. You're going to experience some level of plateau. You're going to experience some amount of stall. And that stall period, that really is kind of like the great separator. And I would say that a vast majority of folks, they hit that plateau in whatever area of life it happens to resonate with right now as you watch or listen to this. But I know that you can think of something that relates to this stall, that you've experienced that stall in. And almost everybody gets into that stall period. This isn't working out. We got to try something different. Pump the brakes, back it up, let's go the other way. But what if on the other side of that stall, the momentum picks up, the success kicks in, the fulfillment is realized? What if everything is just right on the other side of that? Don't leave. Don't quit. Don't give up before you get to the other side of that. And who knows how long that's going to take. But if you're on a path and you've seen progress, if you're on a path towards something that you want, some desired outcome, believe. Keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Be patient. Get through that stall. If you are taking deliberate action, like we talked about last week, if you're waiting for that thought, that little thing to ignite the right decision, and you get that decision and you move forward. And then you do it again. And when you hit a little wall or you get frustrated, you pause, you take a step back. What is my next action? What is the most important thing? Okay, I got it. Now I'm going to do that. As long as you are in action like that, in deliberate action, You're still going, even if it feels like you're not going anywhere, even if the numbers on the scale don't change, even if the numbers on the bar don't go up. Trust me, things are happening. You might just be in the stall. So if you're in action, stay in action. Keep going. And if you feel like you're in a stall and you realize that you're not taking any action, take some action. Take some action. Pause for a moment. Think about what that right action is. Take that action. Do it right now. And then think about what the next choice is, the next decision, the next action. Do that. The last thing, if you're in the stall, it's part of the journey. There's a destination, we're going to get there. You got to be patient. That may or may not be a pleasant thing, but you can find things within this period, this stall. You can find things to pay attention to. You can find things to refine. You can find things to polish up. You can enjoy the journey. You can know that every little thing that's happening right now, even if it doesn't seem like much is happening, is important. It means something. Zero in, zoom in, take a closer look. Pay attention to these things. I don't know that I have much of an action item for you this week, other than to keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what we've been talking about. Ask yourself, what is the next right thing to do? Do it. If you feel like you're stalled out, just say, hey, maybe I'm just in a little bit of a stall right now. I'm going to keep doing the next right thing. I'm going to stay in action because I enjoy the journey. And I know that on the other side of that stall is some delicious, juicy, smoky barbecue pork shoulder, or whatever it is that you are thinking about right now that is delicious. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a really great week. I love you. Talk to you soon.